When you walk into an art museum, you find hundreds of works of technical summits, creative expression, and pieces that spark your own creative imagination. It's enough to give you an academia headache. So why is it the closer you get to present day in these museums, the shittier the art gets? Hey y'all, it's your good buddy Justin here at Leopard Stripe. I think we can all concede that art is subjective. There's technical feats we can appreciate, the objectivity executed, but overall, the acceptance of the presentation is pretty subjective. In 1917, Marcel Duchamp, a board member of the Society of Independent Artists, submitted a piece anonymously for the upcoming exhibition to be held at the Grand Central Palace in New York. That piece was a porcelain urinal he'd bought from the manufacturer and written the name R. Mutt on it. The society didn't receive it well, and although they couldn't by charter outright reject it, they essentially put it out of the way during the course of the exhibition. Duchamp quit the society over it and became what I think is the watershed moment, for better or worse, and a pivot point in my mind from quaint modern art into postmodern art. Duchamp was a prankster in the art world. You've probably seen the depiction of Mona Lisa with a mustache drawn on it. That's him. He wasn't unskilled, and Picasso, a name synonymous with art, also very skilled, yet produced a myriad of cattywampus junk pieces like these collages. Now, there's a couple of ways we can view all this, and I tend to embrace one or the other depending on my mood and current state of mind. The first one, if we actually are to take what we're seeing with any validity, we got to start back to where we always tend to start, the Renaissance. Because leading up to the Renaissance is perhaps the second most important event that changed the course of human history. The Thanos snap on Europe that was the Black Death. Half of Europe died in the plague. It wasn't a little quick MCU disintegration. It was a drawn-out, agonizing sickness. This led to scarcity in people, and for the people left behind, this meant that even the lowest peasants saw their value as individuals increase exponentially. Had the plague not happened, they may have continued with their fiefdoms, but now we're talking new ideas, discovery, Socrates, Greek and Roman concepts and art rediscovered. From here, new techniques, secular mythical themes would advance. Greatness would be achieved through the likes of Titian, Rubens, Boucher, through the centuries, and then we get to the 19th century. We have a few major game-changing factors for Western art, namely the introduction of Japanese art, the invention of the camera, and access to pre-made paints. From neoclassicism and the academic images of Bouguereau, there's something about his satyr and nymphs that sets my thirst levels to walking through Death Valley at 2 p.m. in July while eating a salted pretzel. Anyway, from there all the way to Van Gogh, and when the French academic painter Paul Delarouche saw a photograph in 1840, he declared, "From today, painting is dead." But it was James Whistler who had the grander vision when he said, if the man who paints only the tree or flower or other surface he sees before him were an artist, the king of artists would be the photographer. It is for the artist to do something beyond this. And within, this is the quote that sums up the trajectory of modern art. When you see works from Hokusai, Hiroshige, realism, generic depiction of the plain sight is not the aim. It's capturing the essence. The work of Delacroix, leading into Manet and the Impressionists, Monet, Pissarro, Degas, Renoir, showed a movement, a feeling, overwrote detail. This pushed even further into post-impressionism with Van Gogh, Gauguin, Edvard Munch. Although these works are now renowned, some not so well received in their time. But the gates were open. And from this point, art is going to do what art does. Pushes the envelope, seeks to show something not seen before, shock and explore. And so from here in early 1900s, we move into Fauvism, Cubism, taking scenes and further pushing the idea behind a scene or object, not explicitly accurate depiction, because why would you? Technical greatness was already achieved, and the photographer is the master of realism and accurate depiction. The place to go and explore is where the camera and reality cannot. And so the concrete depictions of the post-impressionists, Fauvists, even Cubists broke from minimalism, pure abstraction, stripping away the constraint, the depiction, and going straight into a feeling, the emotion that the idea, like a feeling that the Last Supper, for example, might intend to evoke. That's at its best, but this abstraction, this foregoing to technical skill, compared to Rubens or Boucher or Bouguereau, Van Gogh and Cézanne do something very important for a generation of aspiring artists. They present greatness while lowering the bar. In a modern context of music, we can see this, like bands like Sex Pistols, Ramones, Minor Threat, Nirvana. They presented energized, powerful, cutting-edge music in a way that was so simplified, scores of fans would see them and say to themselves, hey, I could do that. And so with this abstract art, postmodern art, while Duchamp was making a statement with his urinal, there's a massive opening for pretension, garbage, and grifting. Much of the most ridiculous postmodern art is a two-way game. It's the artist's contempt for the audience, be that Pizarro Marzoni's 90 cans of his supposed shit. Yes, this guy supposedly Virginia Quick-stepped his way into the canned goods section. And people bought it. To unmade beds surrounded by garbage, to dining tables covered in dirty dishes, a banana duct taped to a wall. The wealthy buy this simply as a display of their wealth, to gesture to one another, show how much they can just throw money around. Abstract work for the office spaces and homes in general, the tendency to lean toward abstract, non-descriptive art is simply a safe move. Some blots of paint aren't going to offend anyone, and more importantly, they're not going to say anything about you. There's nothing there that's going to challenge you. There is a line of thought that this entire postmodern aspect, ugly, meaningless, pretentious art, is a poisoning of the well, a communist ploy to further degrade the free and capitalist West. And this isn't baseless. In 1963, Democrat Congressman Albert Harlong Jr. read on the floor of Congress 45 communist goals to corrupt the West. The writings were compiled by scholars and others. We're looking at number 23, which states to control our critics and directors of museums. Our plan is to promote ugliness, repulsive, meaningless art. I'd say mission accomplished on that one. Of course, there are other aspects, like the Emperor's New Clothes type situation, in which no one wants to be there to say they don't get it or they're not in on it. Or maybe they were slick sales tactics in galleries that got honeyfuggled into promoting bad art. And it depends on exactly who's saying it's good or not. There's a big difference between putting your 2-year-old scribblings on your fridge and saying it's good versus Art Basel, the gatekeepers of good taste, saying and putting in the spotlight. Now that we're in a new age where AI will be able to crank out art 2D and 3D by the billions, really consider that. The idea that AI artist programs might someday become modern artists in the way humans are. What lengths might they go to produce bad, tasteless, ethically questionable, ugly, maybe even deadly art? Consider even Ted Gain probably considered himself an artist. Look him up. These are just one man's take. It's my philosophy that no art is wrong, unless you're working as a commodity or a commission for a client's expectations. But that's a talk for another video. So what do you think about postmodern art? Is it the natural track of art, markets of grifters and suckers, or a commie ploy, or all of the above? Let me know in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share, and subscribe. All the things. You can find me across multiple platforms on Leopard Stripe. Look for the orange L. Thanks again for watching. Now go out, get some sun, touch some grass, and find the art in everything.